evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Thank you all for coming tonight, and to those who might be watching us at home, thank you for tuning in as well. With this, we'll call the meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Manser?
Yes, here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Abarca?
Present.
Ms. Cortez?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wasserstrom? Ms. Wolfe?
Here.
If there are no objections, it would be in order to, or could we approve the agenda as presented? Seeing no objections, the agenda is approved. Before we go into the first regular business items, I know that Dr. Bedell will probably talk about this later, but I wanted to explain to the folks who are present here tonight why we have apples sitting up on the counter here and apples out there. I think everyone here obviously knows, and hopefully the folks who stayed at home this evening know that this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we wanted the opportunity to acknowledge and say thank you as a board for the teachers and educators in our schools who do tremendously hard work every day. This is testing time in the majority of our schools, I believe, and the work is hard and it's very important, and our teachers bring a lot of dedication to that every day. I'm surrounded by two teachers right here, Dr. Bedell and Ms. Kolkmeyer, and there are many others in this room right now. So I just want to thank all of you for all that you do, and those teachers who do the work and show up early every day. Thank you so much. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say the same. We recently recorded a video thanking our teachers and also thanking our faculty and staff for their tremendous work that they're doing to help advance this school system. We've also passed out some goodies to them that they can utilize throughout the summer, just as a token of appreciation. But I had an opportunity to speak to nurses at Truman Medical Center yesterday, and this is also Nurse Recognition Week. And I talked to them about, how they are the first line of defense when we come in and we have to go through a procedure, and then when you wake up from a procedure, they're going to be there kind of helping to get you back oriented. Well, it's the same thing with teachers that I shared with them. For many of our kids, they're that first line of defense, that last line of defense, and based on how they relate and work with students and the expectations that they have with students, it can make or break a student's future. And so we know that we have dedicated educators that work in this school system that care. They understand that their assignment is a little bit more difficult than perhaps in other school districts, but they do it because it's the right thing to do. And I think that what we've tried to do is to constantly show our appreciation. We know tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to show our appreciation to some more teachers. And in the future years, trying to figure out a way to even show more and more appreciation for the work that our teachers do. So we'll continue to do that as we work with our union representative, but as we work with our educators across the system. So once again, I do want to recognize all of our wonderful teachers for the work that they do, and just say happy Teacher Recognition Week to all of you.
Move on to the first business item. The chair recognizes Dr. Bedell to present this proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we'll have, wait a minute, we're missing something here, because we wanted to do the KCPS charter sponsorship for Allen Village and then do the board workshop presentation. So maybe just get that one knocked out real quick. So, you wanna come up to the podium at this point? What we're asking the board at this time to do is to take action. Yesterday, the Allen Village Board voted to move sponsorship over to the Kansas City Public School District, and this is a conversation that we've been having with UMKC, removing itself from the sponsorship business. Several charters had to figure out who they would go to the sponsor. And so at this point, that's what we're recommending to the board, is to take action that we accept Allen Village Charter School, and KCPS will become their sponsor. So if there's anything you want to add based on your meetings yesterday.
Good evening. I just want to add, the Allen Village Board of Directors had previously voted to move their sponsorship and have requested that Kansas City Public Schools become their new charter school sponsor. And as by statute, all charter schools, in order to operate in the state of Missouri, must have a sponsor. And so what is before you is a recommendation to approve Kansas City Public Schools becoming their sponsor. They are a longstanding charter school. They were established in 1999. They have been financially sound consistently over the years, carrying a 32% or more fund balance on an annual basis. They are high performing. They have a high attendance rate, and they have established leadership. And so for them to seek a partnership, and this is in conjunction with our education collaboration model, that we are wanting to collaborate more with our charter schools, for them to seek us as a sponsor and to be able to work with us even when it comes to sharing data. That is something that the board from Allen Village is very interested in as well. So I think this is a great opportunity for Kansas City Public Schools. And it's not uncommon for public school systems to sponsor charter schools. In many states, that is actually how the law is set up, that the charter schools, in order for them to exist, actually come through the public school system. Missouri was set up differently, but does allow the public school district to sponsor schools. So this would be a wonderful opportunity.
Are there any questions? Ms. Wolfe?
I just want to clarify, when I was reading, is this a 1 year or 2 year? Because it looked like it was 2 year on the agreement, and I know originally when we were chatting with them, they were talking about 1 year.
It will actually end up being 2 years,
Okay.
and it's because they're getting ready to go into their renewal. So it will have an opportunity to renew the contract, but because their renewal is set up for 2021, it would enable us to get them through the renewal process and to be able to present them before DESE for the renewal.
Mr. Hogan?
Can you talk about the specifics around, you mentioned high performing, high attendance, give us the data around those, and then second question would be around what are the financial implications for KCPS as a result of the sponsorship?
Okay. In regards to their performance, when I say high attendance rates, they're at 94.7%. And also, if you would want to follow along, their district report card was part of the board packet. So their report card is there. They are a school of approximately 605 students as of 2018. So this is 2018 data. They have a 0% dropout rate. They are a school that their APR score, I apologize, it was right before me, but it is in the mid to high 80s for their APR rate, which is a very good rate. For them, they are a staff that has over 56.7% of their staff having advanced degrees. They have an average ACT composite of 17.1. So they are a school that has had consistent success academically.
And then around the financial implications
And
for KCPS.
the financial implications to the district, there isn't a negative financial implication, so there's no cost to the district. However, by statute, every sponsor, every school that they sponsor, 1.5% of their state funding is redirected to the sponsor, and that is to assist the sponsor in assisting them. So it is to help offset the cost of the sponsor, to support them, to monitor them, to provide services. So there is no negative impact.
Mr. Barca?
Two quick questions. In terms of the, I guess the negotiation or whatever is happening, I made a comment in executive session about ensuring growth for the school was something that we discussed prior to it happening from the charter school standpoint. The second question kind of goes into this in terms of what grades does Allen Village currently maintain?
They are a K-12 school system. So they are completely K-12.
My question is this I know that we, Dr. Bedell had met with all of the charter schools that have been sponsored by UMKC, and Allen Village is the first one to come forward and say that they would like for KCPS to be their sponsor. Have all of those schools that were supported by UMKC, have they all made their sponsorship decisions for the coming school year?
Yes, they have.
Okay. All right. Are there,
oh.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Go
However,
ahead.
I would like to note, some of those schools, while they have made decisions as far as sponsorships to other entities, they have expressed interest in finding ways to partner with KCPS, whether it's through services such as transportation or our career and technical education services. They are looking at ways to further the conversation to see if there's ways to collaborate with the district.
And another question I have, and I think I don't know if it may be directed to Dr. Bedell, is once Allen Village, based on our approval of this evening, would we ongoing then be receiving some kind of periodic updates released annual on their APR and just academic performance and any issues as we go forward?
Yes, absolutely. And our goal is to, just as we did with KCNA, meet with them on a monthly basis, and it's just check-in meetings and to make sure that things are going well, to talk about how supports can be given, and make sure that the relationship is being maintained. But we want to make sure that as a potential leader in trying to bring this system together, that we do our part and that we're fair in how we work with anybody that wants to partner with us, whether it's a sponsorship or an opportunity to collaborate on some services. But the answer is yes.
Mr. Abarca?
I guess to go back to my point about growth, knowing that they're not going to grow in terms of adding a middle school or a high school, do they have the capacity to grow in size? So if they decide to go from class of 600 to 12,000, do we have protections from our end? That's a lot of growth. But do we have protections in terms of setting the precedent so that if we do add another school in the future who doesn't maybe have a middle school or high school, that we're going to create some consistency?
There are some protections. To answer your question, do they have room to grow? They have room for some growth. However, part of the conversation with a charter school, if a charter school chooses or wants to grow significantly, there has to be a conversation with its sponsor about, is that growth feasible? What does that growth look like? What are the financial implications to that growth? So for them, should they want or desire to do that, that would be a conversation that would come to us for us to be able to do that analysis as to whether or not that is it's a beneficial growth for them.
Go ahead.
Follow-up. Is there any protection from state statute that talks about individuals who get into a conflict with their sponsor in the future about growth from bouncing to different sponsors?
No, there isn't anything particularly in the state statutes about growth, about conflict regarding growth. However, there are provisions in the state statutes. Should there be a disagreement with a sponsor, there are actually procedures that are in place. There are procedures that must be part of their charter, and we adopted their charter is a 400-page document. And so we did adopt their charter from UMKC because it does have all of those procedures in there. It has procedures regarding should it be a disagreement. There's procedures regarding expansion. There's procedures regarding should there be a closure. There's procedures regarding some of their key operations should there be some changes that affect the charter. So that is the document that would actually provide the protections instead of the statute.
I'm just making sure because in my mind, I'm envisioning we are expecting to some degree a level of competition for our schools that are serving within the same region that we're drawing the same potential kids from. So that's why I'm concerned about the growth potential of not just this one, but in the future, others that we may add to the system. So.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a true statement. We are in competition, and I think we've made it very clear, but we also know that in order for us to try to make the system work better, we have to figure out a way to come together on some issues. Now, going out and marketing and creating a product that will allow for us to continue to attract students, that's on us. I mean, we just have to do that. As a sponsor, our job is to just make sure that, as Ms. Scott said, that guidelines are being adhered to, that we're providing the support so that they can continue to operate, and that we're being a good player in that. But there are state statutes and there are things of that nature that need to be adhered to. But yeah, we are in a competitive market, and I think what you will find, and she said this earlier, working in the Houston Independent School District, we competed with charters, and there were a bunch of them that the district sponsored. And there was room because of the way that the collaboration worked. The district still increased in enrollment. Charters still continued to be able to thrive. And then, and there's room for all of that. But I think right now, because of the way that it's set up, I just feel like we're all losing, for the most part. We're losing a bunch of kids that are moving out to Independence, North Kansas City, Park Hill. And so we feel like opportunities to try to collaborate on some of these issues would bode well for all entities.
So the proposal at hand is to approve this recommendation that, and this would be running for 2 years. At the conclusion of that 2 years, Allen Village would either be able, and we would also have the wherewithal to either renew if we felt mutually that it was a beneficial relationship, or they would be in a position at that time, if they so chose, to seek another sponsor. Is that correct? But for the next 2 years, we would be sponsoring this particular school.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So the proposed resolution that the administration has brought forward is to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the charter agreement to serve as the charter school sponsor to Allen Village Schools, a long-standing high-performance charter school. It would now be in order to have a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on this motion? Okay. Hearing no.
I just want to applaud the effort in terms of Dr. Bedell and the team collaborating with charter schools to bring them to the table to get to this point, because I think that's an acknowledgement that you all are doing great work that would lend a charter school that's so high performing to want us to become their sponsor. So kudos to you all to that.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
we have to show our appreciation to the board, and I know Ms. Wolfe did a lot of work putting together those the guidelines and some of the parameters that we needed to take into account, working with the board over multiple months in order for us to get to a point where we can actually have these types of conversations. And I know Shannon Jacks worked closely with her too. So there's definitely a true team effort. I hope we can continue to work this way like we have done in a collaborative manner.
I'm having trouble tonight. Hearing no debate, the question is to approve the charter sponsorship of Allen Village School. This will be a roll call vote. Those in favor will respond yes. Those opposed will respond no. The secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Abarca,
Yes.
Ms. Cortez,
Yes.
Dr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserstrom. No. Ms. Wolfe,
Yes.
There is a majority in favor of the charter sponsorship of Allen Village School. The next item of business is the workshop presentation. The chair recognizes Dr. Bedell.
Okay, yep, I'm pushing this. I'm messing you up. I pushed that prematurely and it cut you off. Sorry. So, thank you, Madam Chair. And at this time, we are ready to conduct our presentation on Board Policy Report 4.1. At this time, I will bring Justin Robinson up, who's our interim public officer, to conduct this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Board Chair, Ms. Manzer, members of the board. Tonight, we're talking about Board Policy 4.1, treatment of scholars and parents and guardians. We're talking about the monitoring period between July 2018 and May 2019. Policy wording on 4.1, the superintendent shall neither cause nor allow KCPS circumstances for current or prospective scholars, parents, guardians, or mandated parent organizations, collectively KCPS families, that are unsafe, undignified, or unnecessarily intrusive or restrictive. KCPS Interpretation, basically the district interprets this as having regular and routine communication with parents, families, and stakeholders. Furthermore, we interpret this to say coordinate and support routine student and family engagement opportunities. This basically comes down to student and family communication and engagement, which is right in line with the strategic plan, Pillar B, safe climate and strong relationships with families and communities. Elements under Monitoring Policy 4.1.4 talks about the district should be able to inform parents and students about classes, courses, and activities and services. One way we accomplish that is through the district website. You look on your screen right here, we have two different categories of classes and course links. Underneath there, you can see several different links, 2 pages on our website where we inform parents of the curriculum, the grading information, career and college readiness, course catalogs, academic programs, graduation requirements. On the other side, you can see the activities and services links, including the student section of the website and the parent section of the website, and also the enrollment center. If you take a closer look, I want to show you some of the things that's actually on the website to help inform parents of their classes, courses, activities, and services. So if you look under classes and courses, you can see the Career and Educational Planning Guide, that page on the website. So for years, obviously, we've printed this guide that we've given out to students and counselors as they look to plan their career and what classes they're going to take. Of course, we still do that, but what we've done in this past year is we digitize this. And when we say digitize, we don't mean we took the book as a PowerPoint and uploaded it to the website so someone still has to search through pages. We've taken the book and turned it into a digital website where you can find the different categories and different sections that you want to go through without trying to search through a book. We also have on there for your classes, courses, the curriculum page of the website. Parents can go to this page of the website and see the curriculum that is used throughout the schools for their students. On the other side, you can see the activities and services links. Those are 2 sections of the website. One section, students. These are redesigned pages of the website. We took a huge effort in the past year to redesign and reorganize a whole website. We took out a lot of pages on the website, condensed some information, and organized it, because what we found, the website used to be organized by departments. But when you organize it by departments, there can be something a parent is looking for, and they have to go find what department it's coming out of. And we got a lot of feedback from parents over the years that said this is confusing and we can't find what we're looking for. So what we did is we organized it by the category. So if you're a student, you go to the student page on the website, and all the information that we believe a student needs, from talking to students, talking to teachers, talking to those who work with students, are in that section of the website. And the parents, the same thing. So what you'll see later in the data is how that actually affected how people use the website by reorganizing it the way we did. Also, the policy calls for students to be informed of the code and conduct and the behavior expected in the classroom. You see the code of conduct book that goes home every year to students, goes home with students to their families. But also we did the same thing with this book. We digitized it. So on the student section of the website we just showed you, students can go there and they can find all of this code of conduct, rules, and policies that they need. So we've made this stuff accessible not only in paperback and printed form, but also on the website, so you can find this at any time. According to the policy, monitoring policy 4.7, routine and regular communication. Again, that is efforts that is undertaken by the communication department, and we kind of split the work we do into 4 different categories. Internal communications, KCPS news and information, media relations, and external communications. If we look at external communications, our theory is we inform staff, staff inform students and families. We have several different outlets that we use to inform staff of what's going on in our school system. Superintendent Weekly Update goes out every week. The daily news goes out every day. We gather news stories that are local, regional, and national, and send them out to make sure people are informed of what's going on in the education landscape. The KCPS intranet. That is also another thing that is new to our system and also reorganized. We first launched it in about 2017-18, coming into this school year, reorganized. And this is a section for staff, again, so that we can provide them the information they need and the tools they need to do their job. We upload flyers there. The staff can go to download flyers. We keep them updated of upcoming events, things that are going on at central office. So this has been a very effective way to communicate internally with our staff. We also have broken that down on the intranet that's not listed on here is to the Teachers Lounge and also the front office. The Teachers Lounge is another place on the intranet where teachers go to find the curriculum, which is more in depth, and also we communicate directly with teachers there for things. There are things that teachers want to know that they don't want to go search the whole website for, so we created that section that have direct links for them, also for administrators, for front office employees. So we've really taken a huge focus on trying to get the information to the different categories that they would directly need, so they do not have to search through the whole entire website. We also made efforts for the calendar updates on the calendar part of the website. Also something on there, BOE staff meetings. This is something that Dr. Bedell has done the last 18 months or so, where we have regular staff or quarterly staff meetings where staff from central office come in here. And so it's not only you're getting the information on all these other outlets, Dr. Bedell and cabinet members are talking to staff face to face to let them know what's going on and where we are on some of the key issues. Another effort, KCPS News and Information. Now, this is us telling our own story. If you look at some of the different ways we can tell our own story, it's the Plug online news magazine, the e-news update that goes out, and then their social media sites. We have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Flickr. Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, obviously we have district sites, but we also have those for every school. We've also made a huge effort over the past year to get those set up in schools so that they have access to these things as well. Let's take a closer look at the data on the Plug. This is a news website that we launched in 2016. And so the theory behind why we launched this website in 2016, because a website, the district website, is for information. Information should not change on a constant basis. Information should stay the same. I use the example as your business card has information on it. The information on your business card doesn't change on a day-to-day basis. But a news website, news changes on a day-to-day basis. So we wanted to create something that is more interactive and that can be easily updated on a day-to-day basis, and that's why we launched the Plug. The data below shows the total number of people visiting the website, called users, the total posts viewed, page views, and how they found the Plug, the top sources. And so there's a couple of things I want to point out on this data right here. You can see the users in 2017-18. That is the entire school year, so that is from August until May. 2018-19, that's from August until April year to date. So it looks right now as if we're going to have a little bit less, a little bit fewer users, and also the page views look like they're a little bit down. But what we want to note is that graduation season is still to come. During graduation season, we upload all the graduations, and that's when we see a lot more activity on the Plug, but also our other media outlets that we'll discuss a little bit later. Also, we plan to expand in the future. Right now, the Plug is pretty much managed by the team over here in the corner. They write all the stories and update the stories, but our goal with this over the past couple of years was to develop best practices so that we can now take this to the schools. We wanted this to be able, for schools to be able to update their own news and information, maybe put it in some news media classes in school buildings, some English classes, so they can continue to tell their own story. Facebook is another news and information outlet that we use, and right here, this outlines the Facebook likes that we have seen over the years. So likes show the increase, we can show the increase in the number of Facebook likes for the district page, and what we see right here in that increase was in December, we came together as a team, and we've been very active on Twitter, which we'll show you some data on that in a second, but we wanted to ramp up our efforts on Facebook, because what we know is that is where our families are. There are a lot of different social media platforms, but for the families we serve, we understand that they use Facebook most. So if you can look from August, September of 2017, we had 5,000, a little over 5,000 Facebook likes. Going into December of this year, we had 6,700, so about a 1,700 increase. Since we upped our efforts on Facebook, which means adding more plug posts, we added more regular posts, we did a little ads. We also timed these things out, so sometimes you're getting Facebook posts when we're not at work. And so we've seen just in the last 4 to 5 months an increase of over 2,000 likes to that page. And that is very important because likes translate into the Facebook reach. You talk about reach equals how many people viewed your post. And so views can come in a few different ways. They can come by showing up on someone's timeline. They can come by shares, so if somebody sees it and they share it, that counts as a view, and also by sponsored posts. And what you see here is when you talk about showing up on someone's timeline, first you have to like it. So that's why that's important. Then there's an algorithm that Mark Zuckerberg uses to make stuff pop up on your timeline that we have no idea what it is, but we know that if you don't like it, you won't see it, and if people aren't out there sharing it, and if you aren't being interactive, then it won't show up on people's timelines. So we're not only just posting, we're trying to be more interactive with our community as well. We also are doing some direct advertising with Facebook and social media that you've probably seen with summer school and some of the other pre-K and other things out there that will pop up on targeted groups that we assign for that paid advertising. Now, if you look at some of those spikes, what we've noticed, and when we analyze this data, we see spikes at certain times of the year. Those times equate to when it's enrollment time of the year, when we're doing major events like Summerfest, and also, really, we see a lot of spikes on inclement weather days. When we're making those announcements, we make them on Facebook, we make them on Twitter, and that is how a lot of people get information. You can directly see when we're putting that information out there how many people it reaches. Twitter impressions equals how many people viewed our tweets, just like reach does for Facebook. You can see the November 2018 to February 2019, which is this school year. Then also we put data down there from November 2017 to February 2018. So we're analyzing those 2 3-4 month periods. What we see in 18-19, 279,200 views, people viewed our tweets. That is about 10,000 more than the same time period from last year. We have a huge presence on Twitter. But what we do know about Twitter is we talked about Facebook is for our families. Twitter, we see a lot of companies, media outlets, businesses, some of our community organizations. We do see a lot of teachers, and we do see some families, but it's not as many as what we see on Facebook. So again, people choose the different platforms they want to use, and we're using all the platforms to reach out with people. And again, Twitter, you see the enrollment, our days when we see spikes, events, and inclement weather. A lot of people use that to get that information. YouTube, another outlet that we use. What you're seeing right here is what happened in the last 365 days on YouTube. So on the last 365 days, our watch time has increased. That means the time people are spending watching our videos is up. We have about 130 new subscribers in this time period. And again, when we start looking at the spikes, May 2018, you saw a spike. That is when we uploaded graduation videos to YouTube. Also, where you see a spike is in February of this year. And so when we saw that earlier, we had to really go look into what happened in February this year for that spike. That's the video for the APR press conference. That is the largest viewed video by far in the past 365 days, and actually is very competitive with some videos that's been up there for 4 to 5 years. So what we know is we're getting that good information out there. We're telling our own story. The bottom graphic shows what has happened from 2012 to 2019. So just a little background. My past career, I was a television news reporter. When I left that industry, I came to Paseo to become a teacher to teach broadcast news. The year after that, we launched a KCPS-TV television station. So this YouTube is part of that television station that we launched in the classroom in 2012. And if you look at some of the spikes you see over the past 5 years when we were running that program, those spikes came because we were doing a lot of athletic coverage, but we were doing a lot of student-produced content. And so what we also know is that when you're producing content for families and students, it's probably best that the families and students produce the content. And so we've kind of lagged off of that for a little while, or a little bit this past year or so, but what we're doing right now is we're in the final stages of putting together a studio here in central office. What we're going to do with that studio is our team is going to still continue to reach out. We already have been assisting some schools, as you see right there, East, Central, Lincoln, Southeast Paseo are all interested, or some teachers have started doing television on their own. So we've given them access to high school YouTube pages so they can upload content, but also we're going to work with them and bring them down here and work with some students so we can continue to increase the student content that is produced through our school system. Another element that we use to tell the story is media relations. Media relations, like obviously talking to local news media, and one key element of that we've been really successful at over the past couple of years is building positive relationships with media members. We have increased the press release frequency out of the school district, and we've all seen an increase in positive news coverage throughout Kansas City. News outlets right now see KCPS as educational experts. They reach out to us constantly when local, regional, or national stories are going on about education to talk to our staff about what is going on. It's happened so much with different issues that sometimes our staff is like, well, maybe you want to talk to this other superintendent in North Kansas City or Raytown. And so they have been reaching out to us, but because of the efforts and the relationships that we have made. And those efforts, we have all seen a change in narrative of KCPS. And when you have that change in narrative in the community, it benefits everyone sitting at the table. When you're talking about doing negotiations with other businesses, when you're talking about the academics and recruiting of teachers and staff members, this change in narrative changes the game in the classroom. Another element, external communications and marketing. We talked a little bit about the district website. We also have school websites. When you look at, believe it's 40 different websites overall that our department manages or monitors. We use School Messenger to do robocalls, parent text message, parent emails. We do a lot of graphic design, flyers, billboards, and you can see what we've also made a concentrated effort on with our external communications is branding. If you look through those photos on there, those are billboards, flyers, mailers, websites. The brand is the same, the look of the kids, and we try to show the diversity within the school district. We also try to show, we do these in multiple languages. So these are things that we're focusing on as a department and continue to improve on. So let's look at some numbers on the district website. Below you see data, the total numbers visiting the website, users, total post view, page views, and how they found Kansas City Public Schools. And so remember what we talked about earlier as you look at the number, how we reorganized the website and we've actually reduced the total number of pages. And so what that correlates to when you look at 2017-18, the page views, you have 5,600,000 page views. This past school year, and again, we only have a month left, so you're not going to see a huge increase, we have almost 2 million page views. Looks like we're losing viewership, right? But if you look at the line below, you see the users. The users in 2017-18 are over 100,000 users less than what it is this year. We talk about when we reorganized the website, people found it confusing. That's the evidence of how many pages they had to go to in 2017-18 to find the information. Now that we have it organized properly, they're able to go to that student section and then in 2 clicks be able to find what they're looking for, or go to the parent section and within 2 clicks be able to find what they're looking for. What we have is a more popular website that's user-friendly. And what we're trying to do now is use some of those same best practices that we use to revamp the district website and work on the school websites. So again, we talk about 40 websites and all. It takes a lot of time to gather the information and reorganize. And so it's still a work in progress, but we're getting a lot closer to where we want to be. Let's Talk, another element that we've used to improve communication. And so Let's Talk launched in February of 2018, and you can see the number of district users we had when we launched. District users means how many staff members are actually using Let's Talk. the dialogues received in that time frame, and that's from February pretty much to July of 2018. The average feedback score and the most active interest, the same on 2018-19. We increased the district users just a little bit. Again, we're trying to, before we just roll things out district-wide, what you're going to keep hearing me say, we're trying to learn best practices before we take these things to more people. And so we increased it to a few district users. There are fewer dialogues over a longer period of time, and we'll talk about that in a second, and the average feedback score. So first, let's talk about what people are asking us on Let's Talk. Ask anything. That's the top category for both years, and that's really what they do, is ask us anything. Their questions range from a number of different topics, and so when the questions come in, just to give you a little update for those of you who weren't here when we launched this, a question will come in on Let's Talk. If you look at the categories under hot topics, there are several different topics that you can select. And depending on what topic you select is who it goes to inside the school district. So no longer do you have to search around the website to find out who the chief of HR is. You can go to Let's Talk. You can say, I have an HR question, and it'll go right to them. So they're going right there, and they're asking anything. They're asking the superintendent last year. Human resources is popular, but I want you to see that fourth one down, calendar feedback. Last year, if you remember, we had a lot of discussions about the district calendar, so we put a survey and questions out there on Let's Talk. So that's why you're seeing a lot more activity from February when we first launched to July of last year than what you're seeing right now. We haven't done any of those type of surveys or questionnaires on Let's Talk this year. On the 2018-19, again, ask anything, and what came up second was not one of the things that was on there the first year, which was admissions enrollment. Obviously, they have a lot of questions about admissions enrollment. This one will show what customer type and also the dialogue type. And what we saw in both years, the customer type, parent and guardian and community members largely, and also they're just coming here to ask questions. You get a few concerns, but people just have a lot of questions. How do they get there? The entry point, you saw that landing page where you can get to, but also if you look at that second way, that tab, on our district website and even on mobile, there's a tab on every page that you can click and find, and you can go to right to Let's Talk and ask a question. And I think one thing that I'm looking at this as a success is the people are coming there, and the customer frequency, they ask one dialogue. What that's telling me is that they're getting the answer they need, and they don't have to come back. Another element of monitoring policy 4.1.10, parent and student leadership organizations. And so again, our community engagement side of the division takes care of this element. We do district advisory committees, school advisory committees, parent-teacher associations, and KCPS events. So the District Advisory Committee, better known as DAC, serves as an advisory capacity by providing information and support to parents, parent organizations, school district administration, and the school board. This year, as you can see, we had 4 different meeting dates, and what we want to show you is kind of that average attendance per meeting. That last year, in 2017-18, that average attendance was 23 people. The average schools represented 11 schools. This year, after revamping our department, adding a couple of people, and I don't know if you've seen some of our engagement crew as they're out working the scenes and they're working different events, but these ladies are very good at what they do, and we're already seeing some benefits by this addition to our team, where we went from 23 average attendance per meeting to 36 this year. We went from 11 average school represented to 17 this year. And just like when we talked about media relations, it's about building that relationship. That's what that team is doing. In fact, that's why they're not here tonight, because they're out engaging in other events. Some of the different featured speakers and organizations, Urban League came in, Justice in the Schools, KCPS IT department came into one of the meetings. And again, these things are important as you're talking to parents and community members to help them understand different things that are going on in the school district. Our SACs, school advisory committees, you can see a list of the schools that have SACs there. They work with the principals in the schools. But also, we have parent-teacher associations and parent-teacher organizations. Both of those, your school has the option of what they want to do in the school, and so you can see what some of the different schools have chosen to do. And as we come to close to the end here, KCPS events. When you talk about engagement, it's great to have digital. it's great to be on computers. It's great to send things out. It's great to have their phones, but still, people still love that one-on-one contact. And I can tell you this district has put an extreme focus on getting out of this building, getting to the community, telling them our story face to face. One way we do that, Summerfest, we have year after year more than 5,000 families come out to Summerfest and participate. This year, Dr. Bedell did another series of student rallies where he went to those schools you see there, 6 high schools, 2 middle schools, 1 elementary school, which is actually Foreign Language Academy, which is really a middle school. He'll talk to the middle school kids, but engage with them, telling them stories, telling them, getting them excited about the school year, getting them excited about what we have to offer. So again, a lot of that communication that he did was telling them about KCPS and letting them know things that they may not have known that was already in this school district. The knock and talks. We called it knock and talk, but you didn't have to knock and talk. You had options this past year. You could make phone calls, you could do handwritten notes, you could do emails, you could do home visits. Our schools did all of the above. And from a survey we sent out, we reached at least 900 families based on their responses to the surveys that we sent out when we did the knock and talk. So we assume that we hit a lot more, but that's 900 families from the surveys that we received back. Another thing, Dr. Bedell and staff members have gone out in what we call community conversation series. So we've gone to local organizations. We've gone, you see NAACP, the 3rd District Community Meeting, Blue Hills Neighborhood Association. So what this is there's one thing to create your own event and ask people to come to, but a lot of people in our community are already committed to organizations. And so what we've done, again, continue to build relationships and ask them, hey, can we just get a little bit of time on your agenda to tell you all the things that are going on in the Kansas City Public Schools? On the other side, you can see we increased our school-based family engagement events to 4 this year. Family Empowerment Series, we did financial literacy twice. And student town halls, this is our 3rd year doing student town halls where Dr. Bedell goes out to high schools. And so we pick a school in a certain area of town, but all the high schools in that area of town are allowed to come there, high schoolers and middle schoolers. And they grill Dr. Bedell about what's going on in the school district. I think a lot of the questions come around the food that we serve them, but... But it's a time where they get to give honest feedback to the superintendent. Again, when you talk about student and family engagement, going to them face to face, listening to what they have to say, and then coming back in the next year and say, you know what, we heard you, and this is what we did. Other things we did this year are on the list as well. But coming in school year 1920 for engagement, one thing that we want to do, that we will do, we already have plans to do, is a district-wide student council. So we haven't had the district-wide student council this past year that could meet and come and talk to Dr. Bedell on behalf of students and have meetings. We have plans in place to make that happen next year. The Family Empowerment Center, right now working on plans to launch that in Central Academy. In the wing, right now we have the early Head Start. So there are plans right now to make that happen next year. The team has been working on a family engagement policy framework. We entered into a contract with Scholastic to work on that framework, and they'll come with some training along with it. Also, to continue to work with the parent liaisons and home coordinators, training them on different PD days about best practices, and also continue work with the principals and school leaderships on training them so they can help increase the DACs or the DAC memberships, the SAC, and the different family engagement opportunities that we learned best practice here at the district office, and then also want to implement in the schools. And that concludes my presentation. Questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, let's see. We'll start with Dr. Jones. Mr. Barca, and then Ms. Wolfe, did you have? Okay, and then we'll come to this end.
So first of all, thank you for this. This was a great presentation about communications. I'm happy really to hear about how the narrative is changing. So one of my gripes in the past had just been like, okay, man, everybody has like a sob story about KCBS, all the news outlets. And so I'm happy to see that tide changing. So thank y'all for the efforts in that area. The other question I have is, so you presented a lot about sort of district level communications. Well, what about at the school level? Is there any interest in working at the building level to help people, building leaders communicate better with the families there? So things like when tragedies occur, or there's changes in personnel out of the classrooms, like how is that communicated, and is there a standardized policy for that?
Well, right now, what I wanted to hope this communicate through this presentation is for those of you who have been involved in the school system for a while, we knew that internal communications was a huge problem. We knew that there was a huge problem of just getting our own news out there and telling our own story. We knew there was a huge problem with media. And so we've tried to tackle these problems with this current when we came in with this current administration right now. And where we are is we feel like we do have a good hold on some of those issues that were hurting the school system. And so now that we have that is the next step. Because this is what we're here for. The teachers are on the front line, the principals are on the front line, and what we need to do as experts in our field is get in there and train some of them on how they can better do this themselves and not rely on central office.
Go ahead. Sure.
I had was just about PTA support. So if a school has a PTA that may be struggling, is that on the building leader, the principal, to get that started, or is there a system in place where people from central office can support? So a PTA, like the options that I've seen so far are to contact the state Missouri PTA office, but like there are many parent groups that don't understand how to set up an account, how to do all of these things that they might need to do. Is there support from the central office for that?
That is exactly what the engagement team is there for, is to support in setting up and helping the principals. Now, they are building level activities, and so the parents have to want to do it at first, and then you have to give them some of the support that they need to, again, knowing that step-by-step process. This team has just come together this school year. So again, a lot of what you're going to hear is we tried to get this at the district level. We're seeing the increase in DAC right now. What we want to do is do the same thing with SAC next year.
Mr. Barca?
A couple things, just to jump off that real quick. Can you make sure as you're building that at the school level, you're also engaging the neighbors who live in the neighborhood who don't have kids going to the school? Because I think there are a lot of people out there, whether they have kids in other school districts, or they're just people like me who live a block away from James Elementary, who obviously care about the district, but have no connection to the district unless I want to go and connect to them. So to that point, the other things, do we have or utilize yet in the internal mechanism a way for parents and students to utilize our website or whatever function we have within the intranet that would be similar to like a college setting, right? So when I go to the University of Missouri, I go through there, I enroll in classes that way, I look at my email through this website, I could check grades through this website. Have we gotten to a level like that yet where students and parents and anybody else are driven to the website to utilize it in that way?
Not necessarily the way you would say as far as the intranet. But what they can do, and that's why I'm going back to the students page of the website. I think for what kind of the usage that you express, that's kind of what idea behind the student section of the website. So when you talk about checking grades or things like that, that's Tyler. And so, or you talk about Google Classroom. On that page of the website, you're going to find a direct link to Tyler. You're going to find a direct link to the Google Classroom. You're going to find a direct link to some of the other elements working with the Javier within the technology department. They let us know, hey, what are some of the things you're using? How can we get those links on there? So those type of elements, it's not intranet because intranet means we just don't want the rest of the world to see. And we don't deal with that type of kind of information. When it comes to the stuff that only for the student or the individual parent, that's through Tyler.
I'm just making sure that I'm not re-envisioning my high school experience where I had to go to each one of my classroom teachers and ask them for a grade. I can go through some mechanism to do that. Perfect. Well, and also to drive more content use from individuals, because if they graduate to a college setting, they're going to be using this type of system in the future. So that's great that exists. The last thing is, how are we driving, and today's a great example, the use of the live stream for board meetings, as well as engaging individuals to show up to board meetings. But thank you all for being here, by the way.
I'm gonna argue that the popularity of our live stream is why people are not here right now.
I just shared it, just FYI.
You know, that's a great question. We do post it on our website. But we have not made a huge campaign for people to start watching and getting engaged, and that's something we can look into doing.
Ms. Wolfe?
Thank you. I'm going to focus my questions in Let's Talk, because it's like my favorite little thing that I don't know that we are utilizing to its fullest extent. So page 21. I have lots of questions, but I won't bore the entire audience with my other questions. So, as you mentioned, it was launched in February of 2018. I was curious when the district decided to use K-12 Insights, who is the platform for which this sits, what some of those goals were that were established when we thought we were going to use Let's Talk. So what I'm asking is for things maybe in the Friday update.
Okay.
So what were the goals? What were some of the, you've got some of the baseline stuff here as far as number of users, dialogues, average feedback score, but I am very curious when we started this, what were we hoping to accomplish? I think some of that was around transparency and communication, and I'm trying to see if we are measuring through these. I think there might be some other key performance indicators that can show us whether or not we're actually doing that. So an example would be on page 22, when I see things change where obviously these are different school years, different things going on, as you mentioned, but parent concerns and complaints actually started to move up. And so digging into that information a little bit more and just understanding, can we glean information from Let's Talk to help us understand what stakeholders are trying to tell us? Ask anything. I venture to guess a lot of people just bucket into that because they don't really want to think about it in our terms, and so are we even going in to ask anything and maybe recategorizing so that we can, I'd love to use this as a way for us to really another tool for us as board members and the administration to understand what people are trying to find out. I got another one, just that as we learn these questions, like you said, these dialogue types, it's question 1, I think, only having to come in once. These might be things that become frequently asked questions, so people don't actually have to write in and do a Let's Talk if we see some commonality there as well.
So we can answer one of your questions right now. We'll do the others in the Friday report, but
Okay.
Ask Anything is actually Megan Batchelor. She is Ask Anything.
So I do run the Ask Anything topic, and 75% of those are reassigned to other district users that are on Let's Talk.
Okay.
So the Ask Anything is actually purposely close to the bottom so that people have to go through. Most of the time they have no idea. Like
How
this-
to, quote, categorize it,
How
right?
to categorize it, yeah. So most of the time on those, I will recategorize it to whoever it needs to go to.
So when you say that, Megan, that's very helpful. When I see this slide on 22, does this Ask Anything of 195 mean these are the ones, or 185, my eyes are bad, of what's left after you've recategorized or before?
It's what's left. Those are the ones that I've closed out, or
Okay.
I've answered the questions, or I've redirected them where they needed to go. Tell
Okay.
them who they need to respond to.
Okay. And since these are resolved questions, do we have an average time to resolution for these sorts of things?
Yeah, I can pull that data.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan, and then Mr. Wasserstrom. Mrs. Cortez. We'll just go down the line.
Yeah, thanks for this, Mr. Robinson. A few questions for you. One, I want to level set on nomenclature. So when I say marketing, does the school district think communications? Are those synonymous?
Yes.
Okay. So from an external communications perspective, how do you define success? So pull into context all of the different efforts, whether they're digital or social media or building relationships with the media directly, et cetera. How do you guys sort of define whether or not you're being successful, other than an increase in numbers of activity through social media channels?
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah. How do you define whether or not your external communication efforts are successful?
When it comes, okay, so I pulled this slide back up. When it comes to the district website, the school websites, which all fall under external communications, that's the data that we were showing on there. Now, when you're talking about marketing and advertising, that data and information isn't in this presentation because I was focusing on the board policy about regular and routine communication to our students and families. When you're talking about marketing and advertising per se, you're trying to get them to take an action. And we do have a presentation that we can make on that, but I'm sure they made me take out those slides. But there is a lot of, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a conversation that we would have to lay out more than we could do right here, right now. But we were happy to have that conversation, or maybe put some of the information in the Friday update.
So I would challenge you to think in terms of, and you talked about this in your presentation. Someone stole my thunder. Think in terms of the narrative piece, right? So you said early on that the narrative's starting to change. Is it starting to change, and is it changing in favor of the district? And if so, right, I'm trying to get to, like, what are you trying to accomplish when you do this external communication largely across the community? Go ahead, Dr. Bedell.
Yeah, I'll answer that. It is about controlling the narrative and allowing for stakeholders to understand that the district is a professional organization that has the ability to create polished products. It's easy. We want people to feel comfortable that they can go to our website, or that they are receiving information that can answer whatever questions they may have. Ultimately, what you want to see happen out of all of this is that there is a perception shift in the way that the district's being treated. So if people aren't approaching us from a deficit lens, or saying that the district is not a polished organization, that then helps us from a recruitment standpoint with the type of people that we can recruit that want to come here and work. Secondly, and I'll tell you, we'll use Darren Slade as an example. When he was making his decision on whether or not he wanted to come here, the first thing he did was went and looked up on the website what is being said about the Kansas City Public School District. And when he wasn't able to find negative stories about the school district, he said, this seems like a place that's moving in the right direction. There's positive media stories out on them. The perception is looking more positive. I want to come here and work. The other piece that it does for us is it allows for us ultimately to be able to keep and hopefully retain quality staff, but also recruit and retain students. You know, I think at one point this district, when you look at the projections, probably should have fallen under 14,000 by now, just given the fact of what the projections were after the first year that we came on board. But we haven't. We've been able to keep it above 14,000, and hopefully we'll see an increase. We would love to see more than what was projected as an increase, given the fact that we're opening up another school and freeing up an additional 500 seats. But I think that when you communicate the way that we have, it has created, in my opinion, a polished school district, and I think not only locally but nationally. We've gotten Huffington Post reached out. They want us to do a story. I mean, there's a whole bunch of positivity that's coming out of what's happening with our communication. We've won various awards. We don't do it for winning awards, but I think if you create a great product, you get recognized. We've been recognized nationally. We've been recognized here at the state level on many fronts because of the documents that we're able to produce as a school district. And so I think that it has really created this narrative now that KCPS is a well-oiled, polished machine, and people are asking us, how can we learn from you all? So I don't know if that helped.
No, I think that's good. I think there's still more work to do in this area. Would be my point. I'm sure we all probably still get people that come up, and it's disturbing for me because I've seen it just for this long, and the amount of effort going into changing the narrative through not just the earned media stuff and a lot of the stuff you're doing from a communications perspective, but the results from an academic perspective. Mm-hmm. But people still feel like KCPS is on fire, right? And so I guess my final question is, what's the overall communication budget? Do we know that just offhand?
I do not know.
Yep.
Well, while Ms. Quinley is getting that, can I go ahead and move to Ms. Cortez?
Thank you. I really actually want to follow on to Mr. Barca's question and kind of extend from Mr. Hogan's question as well. When we talk about stakeholders, right, we've talked about kind of the core stakeholders of the district, but what are the strategies at the neighborhood level and beyond in this disaggregated media universe to really communicate the story to people who would not naturally go to our website or would not naturally seek out information about the district?
I'm going to ask Lynn, who's in charge of marketing, to come and answer that question. Because, again, a lot of this presentation, the policy points back to our students and our parents and communicating with them. But, again, we do marketing, and, again, as you talked about, we do it well, and that is Lynn's area.
Hello, board. So we were talking about how do we communicate to our students, how do we communicate to our parents, things along that lines. It's very interesting when you stop and you look at all of our different schools. So when I came in, I went through and met with every single one of our principals and talked to our parents and talked to our schools and went and actually dug into the research behind it and found something very interesting. What you can see works well, we'll say Hale Cook. They love the newsletters, they love the email blasts, they like the robocalls, they love the flyers and the backpacks, and they do social media, everything. That's fantastic, but you go a couple miles away and go up to another school and, well, they just like flyers in the backpack. That's the only way the parents really like to get the information. But then you go a couple miles away to another elementary school and they don't even like they don't even really truly look at the flyers in the backpack. They get their information from the churches or the community organizations. And then when you go up to the northeast side of things, it's even more, it changes even more. They might look at the emails, they'll look at the flyers in the backpack if they're bilingual, but pretty much they like to get the information from the newsletter or from the newspaper itself. And so what we have done from a communications perspective as we look to reach not only our stakeholders but our potential students to come to the school district, we have made a point to make sure that we are hitting every little avenue we can possibly hit. So we are marketing and communicating every different way possible. So there's no one magic bullet, but we've went from sending just emails and saying, oh, go to our website, to making sure that we're reaching out to the newspapers, that we have earned media. Ray does a fantastic job from the earned media perspective, getting coverage within the newspapers, looking at different ways we can communicate and work with our community partners and disseminate our information that way as well. Does that answer your question?
Can I say this too, because I think to your point around how do we reach the community and people who don't necessarily have children within the school district, and I know you asked the question about the budget. I know our first year we did KCPS Connects, and we sent that to 90,000+ families that resided within the boundaries. But we also found that was very, very expensive. But I still have people who will come to me and say, that was great. We really appreciated getting the information about what was happening in the stories within your school district. And so I think it's something that, as we think about where we're going as a school district, how do we make sure that we're including all stakeholders, it may be something we have to revisit. I mean, I think that, when we have budgetary constraints, and I know our major focus last year was everything teaching and learning. We put everything into the work that we needed to do in the classroom. And so, that's something that we can look at because that was very successful, but it was very expensive.
And honestly, whenever I first started, I didn't have a budget. We had a very limited, we didn't have any money. And so I did the best I could with what money we could scrape together. Last year, we were able to scrape together a little bit more money. And what I did was, I'm very, very specific when I go and spend money. And so when I go and ask Linda for money, I usually have a really good reason. And it works. It really does work. And so this year we had an increased budget, and the KC Connects magazine did work really well. I've actually been researching some other options, so find a way that we can reduce the cost of that and start reaching back out to all of our families and making sure we're doing it in a bilingual format as well. Sorry.
I think some of the things you're seeing on the screen right now is her work. These are billboards. These are mailers that are going home, and not just going home. We sent them. I guess you can talk more about that, of the strategy of what we did with the mailers to go to people's homes that don't go here.
Yeah, we were actually very specific. We have a lead list. So we have the folks that enrolled last year but didn't accept a seat. We have that lead list, and we actually promoted to them this year. In addition, we went and we looked at school families that live within a school boundary, and if they have families, they have kiddos, and then we scrubbed out who are currently our students, and then we mailed to them as well, direct mail. Social media, we made sure that we were really specific, and we were targeting targeting those families as well. So maybe they're getting the direct mail, they're seeing it social media, but then we took it a step further this year. You can get really excited, so I'm going to try not to be too excited about it. But we took it a step further, and we did neighborhood billboards. Not the huge ones, but the ones that are nestled within the neighborhood. People walk by them, people drive by them, etc. And we made sure that we did something that was very specific. We used Spanish in the Northeast and the East zones to make sure that we were hitting those families. In the Southeast and the Central, we made sure that we hit those families in English. And then we geofenced. So we've been very targeted and made sure that we hit them in a way that they'll understand, making sure bilingual, but then also making sure it's a way that's branding. And I'll come off my ledge now.
Thank you. Mr. Wasserstrom?
I'm interested in
On the board meeting?
No, just on the usage of what you put on the computer.
Live stream?
Right.
Yeah, we can get that information to you in the Friday report.
Okay.
We can look
Do you
at
have
the
the numbers
analytics.
on any usage, any hit of any kind on a weekly basis?
You mean on things like the website, Mark?
Right.
Oh, yeah, we went through that earlier.
Okay. Good.
Mr. Wasserstrom, do you have any other questions?
That's it.
No? Okay. I have a couple of questions, and I think the thing that I understand that this presentation is more around the policies that pertain specifically to the student and family engagement, and that, in fact, what I think we're hearing a lot of tonight is a lot of interest about how do we reach out to people who don't fall into the current student and family category. So you can hear that there's a lot of hunger for knowledge and discussion on that very realm. So in terms of this realm with student and family engagement, I can see in my own experience there's been an emphasis on creating, ready and clear and consistent and accessible information. So it is consistent, it is clear and factual, and is easily accessible, findable by families. And I think that is definitely something that we have to continue to strive for. And that you have a variety of tools you've identified in order to do that. I think I have really two questions. One is actually more of a general query for future dialogue. Since you've identified the digital tools, SAC and DAC, various family support tools, and then special events plus a helpline, I think it would, which is the Let's Talk, which I also am and but would like to see deeper utilization of. I think it would be interesting at some future point in advance of the opening of the new year to understand maybe better some of your targeted goals for each of those tools, who you anticipate reaching, who is your primary audience for those, and how are you going to go about maximizing those, because my understanding different people want to use those. So my real question is around the SAC and DAC. We have 19 schools listed here with SACs on page 28. So my question is, have you assessed the levels of sort of activity within those SACs? And then have you also done any sort of strategy or analysis of the schools that aren't listed here, who clearly there's at least another 18 schools that, or 15 schools that seemingly don't have a SAC. And so I want to understand a little bit better about what you're doing in that realm or what you're thinking in that realm.
Exactly what you said. We do want to take a look at that as we first try to get more SACs on board. As we talked about earlier, now that we got the DAC rolling pretty good, not as where we want it, but still continuing, we will take a stronger look and see with why some of the SACs aren't active yet. And in the next school year, that's something that the team will focus on, and also to see the activity of the ones that are in operation. So that is something that right now is going to be a focus of ours going into the next fiscal year.
Okay. Ms. Wolfe?
So you kind of took my question, but one of the things that I would like to encourage us to do, I would like a little more information in the Friday packet about the Family Engagement Policy Framework of Scholastic, because I am not familiar with it, but I am familiar with Karen Mapp from Harvard and Joyce Epstein from Johns Hopkins, and they have wonderful best practice programs or protocols, whatever, for family engagement. And this is an area, Dr. Bedell knows this, that I've honed in on. I really want us to start to build that capacity within our schools. It's such an untapped potential for us. We saw at Network for Public Ed, when we met with the guys from Anaheim, some amazing parent involvement, engagement. They now have a parent university that they took from a 1.0 sequence of courses to a 2.0 because the parents were demanding it, and it's about advocacy and efficacy. It's amazing. That our parents have that potential. I think we need to invest and get them to that. So I would challenge us in this next year that's something that I think will help hold us accountable as a board and as an administration. So I would just really challenge us in that area.
If I could add on, you're absolutely right. And I just, I know as we're closing out this presentation, the community we have here, and I think it really hit me yesterday when I saw a video of from my hometown of the 4 superintendent finalists that went on Google Superintendent's Alert, and they talked about the low turnout. In that board auditorium, you could count less than 20 people who were there from that whole community for those 4 candidates, 30,000 student school system. And what it did was it brought me back to when I came here to interview, I don't know if it was the 16th or 19th of January of 2016, and we had nearly 300 people for a school district with half the size of enrollment. And what that tells me is, truthfully, there are a lot of people in this community that care, that really want to see that this school district, get its tracking and become a force for the children that we serve in this community. And I do believe that we put the right type of supports in from an advocacy standpoint, which is something that we are 100% committed to. And I think you will see that in the Urban League's annual magazine that will come out on what we're trying to do to really build our community and help our families advocate better, that people will show up and there will be a huge demand. We just got to make sure that we create it and put it in place, because while there is apathy in different sectors of the city, right? The apathy that I see in other cities, like where I'm from, well, this is heaven. I mean, honestly. And so we have an opportunity to really take advantage of this and to really get people motivated that this, what we're offering is good for them. And we're seeing it. You saw it with DAC. on a bad weather day, and I still couldn't believe the turnout on a bad weather day. I only thought 3 or 4 people would show up, and that would be the board officers. But people care. So we have an opportunity here. I agree with you, Ms. Wolfe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bedell. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Before you go, would you do me a favor? You have a very talented and very committed team of people who are here in this auditorium, and I wish you would have them stand up to introduce themselves, because many people on this board may not know them.
All right, we have Mr. Ray Weichel, Public Relations Manager, Megan Batchelor, Webmaster, and do everything person.
Let's talk.
Everything, literally. And Lynn Gehring, Marketing Manager, and then Strategic, I get your title. She does strategy for strategic communication. And Luther Okeo, he's in the back. He is our graphic designer, videographer.
Yes. Thank you very much. I want to make sure to thank them, because I see them everywhere. And the fact that they're still sitting here instead of watching us on live stream at home says something.
And Samara Crawford Herrera is the manager of engagement. Courtney Adams, she's family and community engagement. And then Camila Alvarez, she does partners and volunteers. And then also Candace Cheatham, parents as teachers, as part of the team as well. But
Thank you very
they're
much.
always out.
Thank you. At this time, Superintendent Bedell will introduce business items for the May 22nd board meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The following items are items that we will bring to the board to take action in 2 weeks: the district technology plan, the Franklin building renovation, the Board of Education office warehouse project, and then the Apple contract for the K-2 iPads. As you know, the board approved for us to purchase updated Chromebooks for students in grades 3 through 6, and we told the board at that time that we would come back to make sure that now we can update the devices for our kids in K-2 and develop a cycle within our budget where we will be able to keep all of our electronic devices up to date and current for our students. So that will be part of that request in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, this brings us to the conclusion of our agenda for this evening. So with no further objection, the meeting will be adjourned. Thank you all.